You know how they say when they put you in one of those rooms it's like completely silent? It's sort of like torture because you can hear your innards working and stuff. It's kind of like that driving an electric car. So you can hear the brakes and things that you wouldn't normally hear. It's not torture, like, it's just a bit weird.
Nick.
And people say I'm scraping the barrel for these intros. Hyundai Ioniq then. No, I did that. This is Hyundai's go at a proper standalone eco car, and therefore it's only available as a hybrid, a plug-in hybrid, or a full electricity one, which is what we've got here. Details then. It has an 88 kilowatts electric motor, which is 120 horsepower in old money, and it has a 28 kilowatt hour battery. There's no old money for that, but it is enough juice to keep the Ioniq going for a claimed 174 miles. To show you how that compares to the other electric hatchbacks, here are their claimed mileages, and you'll see that this has got the smallest capacity battery and the second smallest claimed range. But to be honest, much like the numbers produced by the fuel economy cycle, even the new one, these figures are very wishful thinking. Electric car range varies wildly depending on the way you drive and even the season. The batteries are much better when they're warm than when they're cold. But basically, all of these new electric cars will give you more than 100 miles between charges now. The issue of range remains the main thing that people are concerned about when it comes to potentially buying one of these electric things. Which is why every time a new one is launched, the manufacturer in question hits the journalists with some statistic about average daily car use. And therefore, the extremely high percentage of the population that could actually buy one of these if only they weren't so range anxious. Well, according to Chapter 2, Subsection 5 of the SMMT's Ultra Low Emissions Vehicles Guide, I'm amazed I got that right, which I've read cover to cover more than once, the average individual journey length in the UK is 7.1 miles and the average total daily distance travelled is 25 miles. In fact, 36% of people in the UK never travel further than 80 miles. Therefore, a significant number of journeys can easily be made using a pure electric car. In other words, you could probably have one of these if you weren't such a scaredy cat. And that's the official SMMT position. Not really. But the fact is that we are in a place now where, travelling sales rep stereotype aside, most people could run one of these quite easily, even without a fast charging thing. You know, you can get an extension cable and plug this in next to the telly, leave it overnight, and the following morning it'll be juiced up and ready to go. It's not pretty, but it works. And of course, if you do get a fast charger fitted, it'll only take 3 to 4 hours to charge it in full. And if you can find a proper rapid charging point at a service station, say, that's where the whole 80% charge in 30 minutes claim that you hear a lot can be achieved. Okay, so let's assume that you can make this work and you remember to plug it in and stuff. The main question is, what's it actually like? Obviously, it's the main reason why I'm stood here. It is brilliant. It's funny, the whole electric car thing is still so novel that it's a bit disorienting. All these things still seem mega refined because you've taken away a huge chunk of the noise that you're normally dealing with in a regular car, as in the big clattery thing that's normally at the front. But still, this feels every bit the high quality hatchback. Lovely cabin, it feels well made and it looks good, and you've got this general sense of space, and slightly unusually for a Hyundai, it has a bit of personality. It's just a little bit like these bronze accents here, but it's enough. And the gear selector is buttons, which I like because it's different. Slightly strange driving position. Your sort of legs feel a little bit too angled. You're sat a little bit high, but that's just a footnote really. It's far from ergonomically poor. Unlike the Nissan Leaf, whose ergonomics are quantifiably ropey. That is the other main question when reviewing this and every other electric car really. Question being, why don't I just buy a Leaf like everybody else? Well, I answer that question as follows. Let's get this one. It's just better. Case closed. But to expand, because that's the professionally prudent thing to do, as compared to the Leaf, this has a much better driving position, a much more interesting cabin, a more spacious interior, a better way of selecting drive and reverse, and it looks better, I think. It also has a luggage space at the back, just like a conventional car, and one whose usability and capacity are perfectly functional. It's quite big. See? And to put it in layman's terms, unlike the professional way that I'd put it, it's nice to drive. Again though, to expand. There are huge differences between the way conventional engine cars go across the road, the way they ride and handle, but all electric cars seem to have a very similar quality. And I suppose that's because they're dealing with a very unique sort of weight distribution and more generally being pretty lardy. Having said that, as more of these come out, they are getting noticeably better at riding. With these things, you always feel like there's a significant amount of additional weight that's being dealt with. So they generally have over soft suspension and they feel like they're swaying on their springs quite a lot. In that sense, they tend to ride like SUVs do. And therefore, they have a very specific way of dealing with potholes. Now, this has those characteristics. It wallows a lot, it moves on its brakes quite a lot, but actually it is one of the better ones and it does generally feel really comfortable, but it is at going around corners. No idea what's happening underneath here. You don't buy this for the way it goes around corners, do you? That said, like all electric cars, it does feel a lot quicker than it should do, owing to the whole maximum torque from standstill thing that you're obliged to say when you're reviewing any electric car. Until these things are conventional though, and the internal combustion engine has gone the way of the horse, that thing about all the torque from standstill is always worth saying because it really does shape the character of the electric car. It makes them all wonderfully suited to that whole darty, in and outy vibe that you associate with being in the city or in tight spaces. In that context, the only real weakness the Ioniq has is weird brake feel. Kind of wooden, and kind of like they're not strong enough to stop the car, even though they are, obviously. It just takes a little bit of getting used to, that's all. Another thing I really like about the Ioniq is that it has paddle shifters, but not to change gear because this doesn't have a conventional gearbox, obviously. Is that obvious? I don't know. It doesn't. It has a single gear. Instead, you can use the paddles to choose how much brake energy capture you get. So it goes in 4 stages from 0 to 3. So 0, you can just freewheel. And the thing about an electric car is because there are so few moving parts and they're designed to be slippy, closed grille, low rolling resistance tyres, things like that, it's more slippery than...
Well, look at this, I think he's trying to do all this for the Sheffield fans.
So flick the paddle, level 1 regeneration, slow you down a little bit. Level 2, slow you down more, and then level 3, it's kind of like putting the brakes on and it'll slow you down quite quickly to a complete stop. So making that choice and using the paddles to do it is just a nice little addition to the driving experience. It has, in fact, become my personal favourite pound for pound pure electric car. It's better than the Leaf in pretty much every way. It's more interesting than the Golf and the Focus. It's cheaper than the i3 and more normal if you're into that sort of thing. Ultimately, right, if you want your electric car lols more on the conventional side, this has to be the one. It's practical and easy to live with, yet it has a bit of personality and it's a bit different. And because it's a Hyundai, it's also very appealing to own in the basic consumer sense. 5-year warranty, fixed price servicing, and well equipped. So quickly, here's how much it does cost compared to other similar stuff. Quite well, you'll see. And if you're a company car owner, the P11D value for tax is applied before the government grant, which currently in the UK is £3.5 grand, although it'll probably go down soon again. Anyway, that means that whatever the government grant's doing, your benefit in kind remains intact. And because it is a relatively high priced and a futuristic hatchback, the level of equipment that you get follows suit. You'll pay a couple of grand more for a premium SE model over the basic premium one. There are only those 2 to choose from. But the premium SE premium makes the cabin feel a bit nicer by giving you leather upholstery, and it gives you a couple of extra bits of safety kit, which is always good. So there you go, the Ioniq, my second favourite electric car, but the one that I would probably tell most people to buy with their own money. The end. Thanks for watching. Please subscribe to the channel, watch our other stuff, tell your friends if you liked it. There's a more detailed review of this and, well, all the cars basically over at Honest John, and I will see you soon. What? The hybrid one? Well, I don't want to talk about the hybrid one because hybrids suck. Every last one of them.